Hi, today we're going to talk all about CrewAI. This video will just be an introduction into CrewAI. I do have more videos with more details about CrewAI where I show an agentic workflow that I create and how it works. But for today, we're just going to talk about what CrewAI is and how to get started. First of all, what is CrewAI? Well, I think the documentation here says best if you go to crewai.com. Basically, it's an open source framework for creating agentic workflows. Now, why is it called Crew? Because the main idea behind Crew AI is that we create a team that's made up of agents and tasks. And together, those agents and tasks form a team, or those agents rather form a team um, that performs specific tasks. And that team is called a crew within Crew AI. Now, I do like CrewAI. I find that it is very helpful in providing the scaffolding and the structure for creating a very organized workflow that follows best practices. And I find that it's very easy to get started with agentic workflows with CrewAI. So without further ado, let's jump in. I'm going to quickly glance over how to install. Um, I will just go off of the documentation here on the CrewAI website. This video I found to be very helpful, so you can also check that out if you'd like. But down here they have the written instructions. First of all, you will need UV. This is just another Python package manager. It's very fast. And in order to get UV on your machine, follow these instructions depending on if you have a Windows computer or a Mac computer or use Linux. After you successfully get UV working on your machine, you can install CrewAI using UV. And then it shows some ways to verify that your installation was successful. And from there, if your installation is successful, you can create your first project by running CrewAI, create crew, and then the name of your project. And what this does, it will create a bunch of different folders and files within those folders. And right here is kind of the directory, the structure, or the scaffolding behind a CrewAI project. And we're going to talk more about those in detail. Okay, so now we are actually going to create the project, jump into the demo portion of this video. We are going to create the new project by simply running CrewAI, create crew, and then the name of our new project, which for this is going to be demo. So here I am in my development environment. I like to use Cursor. You can use VS Code. You can use whatever environment you choose. Inside of the terminal and inside of the directory that you want your project to live in, you will type the command CrewAI, create crew, and then the name of your project, which is going to be demo for this. You can see over here, I'm creating inside of this CrewAI directory that I have. Okay, so then it's going to ask me what provider, what model I want to use. For this one, I'm going to use Gemini, so I'll type 3, and then I'm going to use Gemini 2.0 Flash. So I'm going to say 5. I don't want anything too big or too expensive. Then it says you can enter your API key here. I'm going to skip that, and I am going to do that in a separate step. So I'm just going to press enter. Okay, now it says my Crew project demo was created successfully. So let's go over here. Sure enough, there's my new directory. Let's open it up and look at the structure. It's going to match what we were looking at over in the documentation. I'm not going to go over everything because this is just an intro. There's a lot going on here. I'm just going to go over the basics of what you need to know to get your first project up and running. In fact, when you run this command, it creates the scaffolding for a crew that is pretty much ready to go. The only thing you have to do is plug in your API key for whatever model you are using, and you're actually able to run it as is after running this command. So we'll walk through all the basic components of what was created so that we can understand the structure of a crew project, and then we'll do a simple run. So first of all, inside of your project, open up source, and then you have this name, another file inside of source, which is the name of your project, and then within that is a config folder. Inside of config are two important files, both YAML files, agents YAML and tasks YAML. You probably can guess these are defining the agents and the tasks in your crew. So let's start by opening up agents. And let's take a look at it. So when we run that create project, it gives us automatically 2 agents. we have a researcher agent and a reporting analyst agent. Now, the thing I like about CrewAI is, like I said, is it helps you follow good practices for prompting and for working with LLMs. So every agent is required to have a role, a goal, and a backstory. Okay. So this one, the role is that it's a senior data researcher of a topic, which is going to be an input that we give it when running when we finally run the workflow. And then we have a goal, which is to uncover cutting edge developments in said topic. And then the backstory is you're a seasoned researcher with a knack for uncovering the latest developments in topic, blah, blah, blah. Now moving on to our second agent, it's the reporting analyst. Again, you see we gave it the role. The goal is to create a detailed report based on the topic. So what it's actually going to do is it's going to take the findings from this data researcher and it's going to create a detailed report using those findings. So it's going to use those findings as the context. And we'll see that later. And then it has the backstory. You are a meticulous analyst with a keen eye for detail, blah, blah, blah. Now, moving on to tasks. In here, we have two tasks. We have a research task and we have a reporting task. And every task has a description and an expected output and an agent. So for our description of the research task, it says conduct a thorough research about the topic, and it also gives instructions on making sure it's relevant and current. The expected output is a list of 10 bullet points of the most relevant information about that topic. Okay, and then again we have another task, which is a reporting task, which gives it instructions on reviewing the bullet points that we get from this first task and creating a report. And then we see the expected output. Here is a full-fledged report about the topics, and we want it formatted with Markdown. And then I think I skipped this in the first task, but we assign the researcher, no surprise there, to the research task, and we assign the reporting analyst agent to the reporting task. So there you go. That's your agents YAML file and your tasks YAML file. Those are where you are defining your agents and tasks. One thing I did want to point out, I wanted to go back to the agents YAML file and show you that by default it's going to use that Gemini 2.0 Flash model that we chose when installing the project, but you can actually use different models for different agents. So you can see cursor is kind of autofilling, but if I wanted to use an OpenAI model, I could do so by simply adding another row in here and defining the model. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to leave everything. If you don't define anything, it's going to go with what you chose when setting up the project. All right, so moving on, we are going to look at the crew.py file. So this file is where the crew itself actually gets created. You can see here that we have a class definition, and the class is named demo, just the name of our project, and we're using this crew-based decorator. So I'm going to skip through a lot of the comments that are generated by default, but you can see here that we have methods that we are defining within this class. And these methods are defined by using these decorators. For agents, we use the agent decorator, and for tasks, we use the task decorator. And that comes from this CrewAI project library up here. So for each agent and each task, we need a method, and within that method is where we reference the agent or the task that we want the method to use. For this one, we are referencing the researcher agent that we defined in our agents.yaml file. And there's some things going on behind the scenes that are not explicitly clear, but what's happening is when we use this crew-based decorator, it actually creates an agents config, or for tasks, a tasks config variable that references the YAML files where we define our agents and our tasks. We could actually put something like, I'm just going to copy and paste it, something like this in our code. This would be redundant. We don't need to do that because that's what's happening behind the scenes. But essentially you can see that this agents config is just referencing our YAML file for agents, and then the same thing with our tasks. But since we don't need to do that, I'm going to leave those commented out and hit save. So you see here we are using that variable which points to our YAML files and saying we want this method to use this agent. Same thing with this one, but for our reporting analyst agent. And then moving down for the tasks, it's the same thing. We are referencing the tasks that we define within our YAML files. One thing to note is that we do define the output for this final task. We are saying create a new file called report MD, so a markdown file with the final results, with the final report. And then we have this crew method, which actually builds the crew. So it takes all of the methods defined with the agents decorator and all of the methods defined with the task decorator, and saves them out here. And then we say that we want it to process sequentially. There are other ways to process or run the crew workflow, but when it is sequential, then it will run the tasks in the order that they are defined in this file. So it's going to run the researcher task first and the reporting analyst task, and use the output from researcher in the reporting analyst task. And that's all kind of happening behind the scenes when you tell it to run sequentially. Like I said, there's other ways to do this. I will have more videos on how to do it in a non-sequential manner, where you give more control and more autonomy to an agent that sort of manages the flow of the crew. All right, so next, now that we've created that class, we're going to jump into main.py. This is where all the functions that our crew can do live. So you can see here we have a run function, which is the one that we are going to focus on today. And then we also have functions called train. We have a replay function. We have a test function, a run with trigger function. The only one we're going to talk about is this run function, which you can see here invokes the demo class that we created here in crew.py. And then uses the object, the crew object returned from this method, and it runs the kickoff method and uses an input here, which is defined up here. The topic is AI LLMs, and the current year is also given so that it can find something relevant. I'm actually going to change this just for fun to a topic that I enjoy, which is basketball. I'll leave it open-ended, see what it comes up with. So when we do run the crew, it's going to take the topic input as basketball. I want to go back to the tasks configuration and show you where that input is happening, and that's right here. I kind of glanced over it, so I want to go back to it. When you put something inside these curly braces, that tells the model that is going to be the input that I just showed you here in our main.py file. So actually there is one more thing that I wanted to show real quick, and it is setting up the environment variables. This is where, in this .env file, this is where you load in your API keys for using those models, be it a ChatGPT model, a Gemini model, whatever it may be. This is where you would enter that information. It would look something like this. I'm not going to show you my actual API keys. So for a minute, I'm going to go off screen and add my API keys here, and then I will come back and we can run the crew. Okay, I'm back. I've added those API keys, so we should be able to connect to our models. Now it's just a matter of running the crew. It's very simple now that we've done all the hard work of setting it up, which is actually not that hard. We open up a terminal. We need to go to the home directory of our project, so let me get there real quick. And then all we have to do is run CrewAI space run. And this first time through, it might take a little bit longer than all the other times because it does have some setup that it will have to do the first time through. Okay, I was wrong. It's actually really quick. Okay, so now you can see that it's starting to run our crew. Says crew execution started. We see this output because we put in the crew.py file, we have the verbose equals true parameter set to true. We would not see this output if we had that as false. So it's saying task started. We're seeing our research task get kicked off. It's invoking the agent that is associated with that task. And here's the final result of that task. So we can see those 10 bullet points. Like we defined, it's all about basketball. Looks to be current in the year 2026, which is when this video was recorded. and then it says that task is completed. So now we're here at the next task, which is the reporting task. It's going to take in the output of the previous task as context using the reporting analyst agent and create a detailed report. And there's the output right there. We can go down here and look at report.md to see that report, because we told that that's where we want the output to go. So we're done with our terminal. Let me exit out of there. And there you can see we have each one of the bullet points. We have further analysis and detailed information about each one of the bullet points. So very comprehensive report getting built there in just a few minutes. Pretty impressive. In my opinion, pretty cool. I have a lot of fun building these workflows with CrewAI, and I hope you will too. Hopefully this video was helpful and interesting. If it was, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. If this was interesting, please check out my other video that I did, which is less of an introduction to CrewAI, and but actually walks through a workflow that I created on my own using CrewAI.